My name is Ellie Shefi. I'm an 8-time #1 international best-selling author, a Quilly Award recipient, a member of the National Academy of Best-Selling Authors, and I own 2 publishing houses. So I specialize in helping entrepreneurs and leaders to strategically cultivate a best-selling book that is designed to build their business and their brand, that it is specifically designed for client connection, client acquisition, client conversion. It's specifically designed not only to increase your visibility and your authority and position you as an expert in the field, but also designed to give you a business in a book, meaning that we are able to cultivate an aligned message for your business and your brand that will resonate with your ideal client, so that you're able to take the content of your book and essentially have a content machine. You're able to take the content from your book and pull that for social media, or pull that for email nurture sequences, pull that for your keynote addresses, pull that for your workshops or your own master classes or your masterminds or the programs that you create, all the things. So we specialize in doing that deep dive strategic work on the front end so that everything else flows faster and easier. So the very first question to ask yourself, whether you have ever written a book, whether you're in the process of writing a book, whether you've written your first one and now you want to up-level your next one, is to really get clear on your particular purpose for that book. Because the purpose for the book is what is going to drive the path to publication that you are selecting. That's how you know which is the best path for you. So there's a lot of different purposes that you could have for writing a book. Maybe it's for your own healing journey, and you want to share your story because it's quintessential to helping you navigate and heal. Maybe you want to share your story as a legacy, where it's something that you want to pass down throughout not only your family, but your community. Maybe you want to write your book to build your business and your brand. Maybe you want to write your book just because it's a passion project. And so getting super clear on truly why you want to write your book is what's going to give you the filter that you need to pick from the 5 paths to publication. That way you're ensuring that the path that you're picking can best serve the purpose that you have. So let's dive into the 5 paths to publication. Now, your first path is your traditional publishing house. That is what we all hear about. That's, the New York Times bestseller list. That's what we hear about, where people get advances on their royalties and they sell a bajillion copies. And that's kind of the pinnacle of success. Now, the process for becoming published by a traditional publishing house is that you need a literary agent. So if you know that I'm going for a New York Times list, that's what I want all the credibility from being published by Simon & Schuster or Macmillan or Penguin House or any one of the top traditional publishing houses, then don't write your manuscript. Don't write your book. You stop, you go and you get a literary agent. The literary agent will then write a book proposal. The book proposal, then your literary agent will shop to the traditional publishing houses and hope that one of them will pick it up. Only after your literary agent has written your book proposal, it's been shopped and picked up by a traditional publishing house, would the manuscript process begin. So one of the biggest mistakes is people will say, I have a manuscript and now I'm going to go try to get it published by a traditional publishing house. And that actually is backwards. They need the book proposal from your literary agent. They don't review complete manuscripts, right? They don't have time for that. They don't want to read your whole book before they even know whether they're interested in picking up an option for it. So you do not begin to write your manuscript if the traditional publishing house is the path to publication that you most desire. Okay, so the plus to a traditional publishing house is that it's the most credibility. It is the opportunity for the widest distribution, for the most book sales. It is the opportunity for the greatest promotional plan and marketing plan and the most well-funded campaigns. And it is your best shot at New York Times list. The downside to traditional publishing is less than 1% of manuscripts are selected, number one. Number two, they are selecting the option to publish your book. And an option is just that. It means they're buying the exclusive right to decide later if they are going to do it. So just because they say yes to your literary agent and they decide that they're going to option your manuscript doesn't actually mean it's going to see the light of day. And there's a lot of different reasons for whether they may decide later to not proceed with that. The first could be that too many other books in your niche have come out in the interim, right? Because with a traditional publishing house, you're looking at a minimum of 18 months. Most are 2 to 5 years. So it's a much longer process. And if in between when they say yes to you and when they're actually starting to work on your manuscript, you have too many similar books coming out, they may decide at that point to not proceed with your book. In the meantime, you've lost all that time because when they are saying yes to an option, it's usually an exclusive option, which means you can't be proceeding in other manners or with other people during that time. The other downside is that you basically have no control. Unless you are super, super famous, already have a mega audience, it's going to be their ghostwriters, it's going to be their formatters, their editors, it's going to be their marketing team, it's going to be their copy team, it's going to be their publicity team. They are going to decide how your book is written, the voice that it's in, how it shows up in the world. They're going to decide your messaging. So the trade-off is, I mean, they're experts. This is what they do. They know how to get it done and get it done well, but you don't have a say in it. Not much. And the more famous you are, the more say you have. But if you're not super famous, you essentially have no say. So you are giving up your brand. Basically, you are giving up that creative say. Also, very often they will copyright it, which means you give up your intellectual property. They will get all the royalties. They will often, if you are established enough, they will give you an advance on your royalties. They're not paying you. They're giving you literally an advance on the money that they are expecting to generate from the sale of your book, which means that if they overestimated and you're not actually selling all those copies, they can require that you pay it back, right? They're not just giving you money. They are just fronting some money to you throughout the process in anticipation of how your book's going to do. They tend to have a very short promotional window. So they'll do a really, really big, expensive launch. They'll see how your book is doing. If your book is not doing as well as they would like, they often, that's the end of that. And then they retain your manuscript. They have all of your assets. They have exclusive distribution rights, and yet they're not distributing. It's kind of dead in the water, right, at that point. And so that's the downside for traditional publishing. So again, most credibility, best way to hit New York Times, but at a pretty big cost. And again, less than 1% are actually selected. So your second path to publication, if you're like, all right, either traditional is not for me, or I'm not confident that I would get a literary agent and it would be selected, is a hybrid publishing house. And in a hybrid publishing house, they can a good hybrid publishing house can have a shot at a New York Times list, less so than a traditional publishing house, but there are some hybrid houses that do have a pretty good track record for that. So if New York Times is what you're gunning for, you can only choose from hybrid or traditional. The other options will not get you there. So you can cross them off your list, right? So hybrid does have a chance for New York Times. They do have a chance for Wall Street Journal, USA Today. So they have a slightly different model. A hybrid house will ask you to pay at least some money upfront versus a traditional publishing house where they're funding it because they expect to make it all back. So a hybrid, you will be investing. Most hybrid publishing houses are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $250,000 for your upfront investment for them to take on your book. Now, what's the difference? Because that's a really big range. If they are not guaranteeing a bestseller list, then it could be more in that $50,000 range. If they are guaranteeing Wall Street Journal, USA Today, then it's going to be much more expensive because of the cost of those campaigns. There are metrics that it's very expensive to do a Wall Street Journal or USA Today bestseller campaign. Now, no matter what somebody tells you, you cannot guarantee New York Times list. Traditional cannot guarantee, a hybrid cannot guarantee. And if you are in talks with a hybrid publishing house and they are guaranteeing you New York Times list, you should run. It's not possible. The New York Times, like USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Amazon, there are formulas, there are algorithms, there are minimum benchmarks that we all know you must hit in order to get on the list. New York Times does not have those benchmarks, and they always change their criteria. It is extremely fluid, and they do that intentionally so that you can't game the system. You can't learn the formula, you can't learn the basic requirements and then meet them just to buy your way onto the list. New York Times does not do that. So if you're in talks with a hybrid house and they are guaranteeing New York Times, that is a sign of a scam and you should absolutely run because it's not possible to guarantee that. So hybrid, you will be paying some upfront, and then they may also take either a percentage of your royalties or they may crowdsource some of the payment. They're a little more flexible in how they structure it, and each hybrid house is going to structure it slightly differently. So when you're interviewing a hybrid house, it's really important to ask about their payment structure, their funding model. The funding model is important to know because the funding not only covers and impacts publication costs, it impacts and funds marketing campaigns, promotional campaigns, media campaigns. Those are expensive campaigns to run. So you want to know, all right, if I'm paying this money and this money is going to just the publishing costs, then what is funding or what is your plan for funding the promotional materials, the media campaigns, the press tour, the book signings, right? The promotion plan past just the launch window, right? So you want to ask a lot of questions. A hybrid house, some of them will be very strict on intellectual property where they insist on copywriting the book. They insist on housing your manuscript in their publishing back end. They may be really strict on that because they have printing contracts where they are insisting that instead of your book being print on demand, that your book is printed in bulk for easier distribution to their distribution partners, say, for example, airports or local bookstores. So it's really important to be asking those questions because you need to know where the money is going to come from and you need to know what their plan is. If you're just paying them to publish the book, but they don't have any plan for marketing or media or press or like a book signing or a press tour, or they don't have any longer term plans, then you need to know that ahead of time because that's going to then fall on you. And you're going to need to make sure that you're budgeting for that. Some hybrid houses that specialize just in getting your book out, but not doing all of those extra things, the ones that might be in that $50,000 range, they may be more flexible if you want to insist on owning your intellectual property, meaning that you're the one copywriting it. They may be more flexible to you housing your manuscript in your print on demand account versus in their publishing account. So one of the benefits to a hybrid house is a little bit more flexibility and negotiating power. So plus side of hybrid house, they do have a chance at getting you New York Times. They do have a chance at getting you Wall Street Journal or USA Today. You do have a little bit more negotiating power. You do not need a literary agent. You can have one. Absolutely, you can have one, but it's not required. You just have a little bit more direct communication with them. You have a little bit more control. So that is a good option for a lot of people, especially if you are a bit more established. Now, your third path to publication is an independent publishing house. That's what I own. That's what kind of a lot of the people that I know own. And they vary quite a bit in structure. Most independent publishing houses, you are going to have quite a bit of negotiating power, and that's amazing. You will be paying for your publishing. Most independent publishing houses that I know are in the $20,000 to $35,000 range to get a book professionally published with quality. So looking at roughly, 20 to 35,000. Now, most independent publishing houses are not going to do your extensive marketing. They're not going to do your extensive press tour. They may help you plan it. They may help you strategize with it. They may help you come up with that plan and teach you how to do the outreach to the media outlets or to the bookstores to do the book signing. But for 20 to 35,000, they're not doing it for you. Again, like we talked about earlier, because it is so costly and you'd need to pay for that. So if they are telling you that they're going to do a big promotional push, then it's probably going to be like a free online summit or a free challenge, something that's free and online that doesn't actually really promote your book. Just be aware of that. They may give you some graphics. I know with my publishing house, the first thing we do is start with the business plan and the promotional plan and the leverage plan and get really clear on that. We have the entire strategy mapped out for our clients so that when the book is published and we're able to make it a bestseller, then after that first launch week, they know exactly what to do. They've got copy, they've got graphics, they've got a plan, they've got their outreach contacts, and it's very easy for them to just deploy. Easy and cost effective. So if you don't have a $200,000 budget or $250,000 budget, then when you're going with an independent publishing house, just make sure that they're walking through that planning stage with you and giving you that crystal clear strategy so that you're able to implement it quickly and easily. Now, also with independent publishing houses, some are going to insist that your book is in their back office. As an intellectual property attorney, as an attorney with the federal government, I would never, ever, ever agree, ever, to allowing anyone else to copyright my material. And I would never, ever, ever agree to letting someone have control over my manuscript. Ever. I would always insist, and I did always insist, and I have always insisted, and that's actually how my publishing houses started, because my first two publishers that I was working with wanted to copyright my material. They wanted my book to live in their back office, and I refused. I was like, absolutely not. Now, why is that important that you retain control over your intellectual property and you retain control over your manuscript? This is one of the biggest mistakes people make. We're going to dive deeper into it when we talk about mistakes after we wrap up Paths to Publishing. But just as a high level right now, if that publishing house, that independent publishing house, that hybrid publishing house, the traditional publishing house goes out of business and your manuscript lives in their back office, your final files live with them. If they go out of business, they take your stuff with them. You no longer have access to that, which means you don't have your files that you bought and paid for. You don't have a way to keep your book out there. And so I would absolutely never, ever, ever let my intellectual property live in a back end that someone else has control over. So it's so important because if your manuscript is in someone else's back end, then they're the ones that can pull the reports, not you. They're the ones that get all the royalties, not you. And if they tell you, oh, but don't worry, we'll deposit your royalties into your account for you, we'll essentially collect them in our account and then transfer them. Well, there's no transparency in that, and you can't double check that because you can't pull the reports, right? So then you're just having to rely on whatever they're telling you as whether that's true or not, whether they're actually giving you all your money. Also, then if you want to do any promotional pricing or you want to do any kind of boost to get your book in front of more people, you don't have an ability to do that without going back to the publisher and saying, hey, would you mind, could we do this promotional thing, could we change the price? And then you're at the whim and the mercy of them and their schedule. So you don't ever want to be in that position. Also, if your manuscript is in their back end, then you can't just order authors' copies. You can't order copies if you're doing a keynote and have it sent to a conference or anything like that without having to go through them. And if they're an independent publishing house that is, for whatever reason, trying to tell you that they have to bulk print your books and then house them somewhere, first of all, they're lying, because there's many ways around that. And second of all, you never want that, because then your print cost is higher and you're also paying to store them. And then your shipping cost is higher, your packing cost is higher. So that you don't want that. You want your manuscript in your back office so that you can go in and order what you need, when you need it, how you need it to be sent wherever you want it. So those are some things to be aware of when you're interviewing independent publishing houses, right? Who owns the intellectual property? Where is the manuscript being housed? How's reporting handled, right? How are promotions handled? What about authors' copies? What about any kind of warehousing or bulk distribution? Those are some questions to ask. So, independent publishing is amazing if you don't have the budget or the audience for hybrid, or you can't get traditional. Independent publishing houses cannot get you Wall Street Journal or New York Times or USA Today. And if you find an independent publisher who tells you they can, it's a scam and you should run. It's not possible. We are not members of the big distribution co-op, which is about $200,000 a year to be a member of, right? So you have to be part of that distribution co-op in order to get the distribution that you need and have all the behind the scenes things that you need in order to hit Wall Street Journal or USA Today. So if you're interviewing an independent publisher and they're like, yeah, we can get you USA Today or Wall Street Journal, they don't know what they're talking about and you should run. Where a independent publisher can absolutely get you is Amazon bestseller. Oh, another good question to ask an independent publisher is, what platforms are you uploading my files to? Super important to ask that question. If they are only uploading directly to Amazon, you should run for many reasons. One, because they're not very good if they think that's a good strategy. Two, Amazon has a history, especially in the last like 6 to 9 months, if not year, of doing AI sweeps to check for what the AI bot thinks of as plagiarism or fraud. And when that happens, the bot shuts down the Amazon account and labels it fraudulent. And the only way to appeal that is to then go and get an attorney and fight Amazon. Good luck. So if your manuscript is only living on Amazon and Amazon shuts down your account, then it's kind of like when I was talking about earlier, if the hybrid house or the publishing house goes out of business and they take your manuscript with them. If your manuscript is only on Amazon and Amazon locks your account, then what? Bye-bye book, right? You want to find out from them, where are they uploading your manuscript? Could be on Amazon, could be on Ingram Spark, could be on Lulu, could be on BookBaby, could be on any number of platforms, but you want to find out from them and be very aware of all the places they're putting your book. You also want to ask them which of those platforms have exclusivity provisions. If they can't answer that, they don't know what they're doing and you should run. So it is really, really important because there are Balboa Press, which is the independent publishing house for Hay House, has an exclusivity. If you go with them, they are the exclusive distributors of your book, which means you can't distribute it in other ways and other places. So yes, they're more prestigious on the independent, but they're exclusive distributors. Forbes, another exclusive distributor, right? If you go with their independent publishing house. So it's really, really important to be able to ask which of all your distribution channels, which have exclusivity. You need to know that so that you don't upload your materials to a place that has exclusivity, right? You really want to avoid that in order to maintain the most control of your materials and to be able to give it away, sell it at the back of a room, put it on your website. You want all the options. So avoid exclusivity. So again, ask any publisher that you are interviewing, ask them which of their platforms has exclusivity. Ask them what is their process for picking categories, right? What is their process for keywords? Those are both really, really important, right? Now, a hybrid publishing house, you don't really have control over that. They're going to pick it. They'll pick it and then they'll give it to you for approval. But an independent publishing house, you want to be able to ask these questions so that you can participate in the process with them. You don't want to just let them randomly, willy-nilly pick. You can let them get ideas, but then you want to have discussions with them and you want to be able to veto, or you want to be able to guide in other directions. So you want to be able to participate a lot in that process because it is your intellectual property. It is something that you're going to continue on beyond just the book launch, right? Like you want your book to be out there. You want the accolades to be out there. You want to be able to drive traffic. You want to be able to leverage it. So asking those questions is really important. So that covers traditional, hybrid, and independent. What is the fourth path to publication? That is self-publishing. Do not self-publish. Unless the purpose of the book, this is why the very first question to start with is, what's your purpose for the book? If your purpose for the book is that it's a passion project, if your purpose for the book is that it's a legacy project, right, then you can self-publish. But if the purpose of the book is for increasing your visibility, increasing your credibility, positioning you as an expert in your field, if the purpose of the book is to build your business and your brand, if the purpose of your book is client connection, client acquisition, client conversion, then you do not self-publish. Because what self-publishing says is, oh, nobody would do it for me. Or I'm so new and I don't have a clue in what I'm doing. And so I just thought this was my only option. And so I did it. Right. But people who self-publish, you are also stepping in all the mistakes, right? Most people who self-publish are finding an editor, quote unquote editor, on Fiverr or Upwork. Maybe their cover designer is on Fiverr or Upwork, right? Maybe they just use the Amazon templates. They usually get their ISBN number directly from Amazon because it's free. No, it's not. ISBN numbers are $125 per ISBN number, and you get them from Bawker. You want the ISBN number tied to your book, not the platform. And for those of you who don't know what an ISBN number is, it's like a social security number for your book. So each format of your book will have a different ISBN number. And you want it to be tied to your book, not the platform. The reason Amazon gives them to you for free is so that your book is tied to Amazon. No, right? So that's also a good question to ask your independent publisher. Where are you getting your ISBN numbers? If they're telling you, oh yeah, we just get them from Amazon, they don't know what they're doing and you should run, right? ISBN numbers come from Bawker. When you are self-publishing, it's very easy to fall into all the traps. You use the Amazon cover templates, you use the Amazon formatting templates, right? You get your ISBN numbers from Amazon, you upload directly to Amazon, if you are uploading your ebook directly to Amazon and your settings are for it to be in Kindle Select, right, where it's got the wider distribution and people who have the unlimited plans can read it and all of that, you just gave them exclusivity. There is a hidden exclusivity provision in that people don't know about. And so you don't ever want to fall into those traps. But if you're self-publishing, you just don't know. And so you make all the mistakes. Don't do it, right? I will tell you that any cover designer that you're finding that will do a cover for $89, $150, $300, even $500 is using a generic template, and it's not quality. A good cover designer, just to give you an idea, in case you are going the self-publishing route and you want to actually find reputable people, a good cover designer won't touch it for less than $1,000, right? Because it is not easy to actually custom create covers, right? There's a lot, the cover's what sells the book. So it cannot just be a generic template. It has to be strategic. There's a whole process. They need to actually read your manuscript. If they're saying, oh yeah, we'll design your cover in 24 hours and they haven't asked you for the manuscript and they haven't read it, run. They're not able to design you a cover that actually reflects the content of the book if they haven't read the book, right? So that's clue number one. They need to read your manuscript. They need to research the appropriate categories that your manuscript would fall under. Why? Because in order to design a cover that is aligned with the message of the book, that is appropriate in the categories, they need to know who your competitors are. They need to actually study. They need to pull up all of the bestsellers in your category, put all of the covers in a thumbnail sketch, and then design a cover that would jump out of those in a crowd. That if somebody is just scrolling on their phone and there's these little thumbnails, would actually stand out to them, right? That's absolutely critical. So they cannot do that in a 24-hour turnaround. They cannot do that in a 1-week turnaround, and they won't do that for next to no money, because all the time it takes them to read the manuscript, do the research, create the grid with everyone's covers on it, and then strategically design from scratch a cover that stands out from the crowd in those categories and reflects the message in your book and your brand. So it is a complicated process that is not quick and easy, and it does cost money. So be aware of that. Same thing for editing, right? If somebody tells you they can edit your book in 24 hours and it's cheap, they're doing spell check and grammar check that you can do for free. That is not editing, okay? Editing is a complex process. Your book should start with developmental editing. Developmental editing usually will take 2 to 4 weeks per pass, and that's where it's an editor who is looking for the holes in your manuscript. They are not just changing words, right? They're looking at the concepts, they're asking the questions, they're playing devil's advocate with you. They're looking for the holes and the gaps that can be filled. Okay, and they're asking you questions. They're not changing your manuscript. They're asking you questions and then sending it back to you for you to address those things. Then it should move to content editing. And then content editing is grammar and diction and sentence structure and passive voice versus active voice and consistency and all of that kind of thing. And true content editing is usually going to take 2 to 3 weeks per pass. Right? After content editing, it can go to a more basic editing, right? Which is reading for flow, just double checking that nothing has fallen through the cracks in the other passes, right? And then after all of that, then it goes through a proofreading check. So it should be at least a 4-step process. Editing is expensive when it is done properly. So developmental editing can be at 10 cents a word. So you can do the math. It's thousands of dollars for developmental editing. Content editing is not quite that expensive, but it's still going to be generally $2,000 for a good give or take, right? For a good content editing pass. Proofreading is faster and easier. Proofreading could be a couple $100s, $500-600, depending on the length of your manuscript. But when you start to add up the costs of editing and formatting and cover design, it is not cheap. And so even self-publishing, if you are going the self-publishing route, which I do not recommend unless it's just a legacy project or a passion project, you are still easily looking at $8,000, potentially $10,000 to do it well. And then you have all the headache of finding all the vendors, overseeing everything. Then you still have to navigate the copyright process, the ISBN process, right? You still have to navigate uploading categories, keywords, algorithms, launch, all the things. So it is definitely something to think about. Pro, like I said, if you're doing legacy or passion, you can just get it up there. Con, way more work, way more pitfalls, no credibility boost, gonna make all the mistakes. Yeah, just not a good idea if you're doing for business purposes. The fifth path to publication is your vanity press. Your vanity press are your book compilations. They are your pay to play. Now, vanity press, literally, there's no quality control. It's you pay my money, you pay this amount of money, and we will publish it. It's the fastest path to the accolade, especially if you're only needing to do a chapter and then you're going to be able to say you're a best-selling author, right? It is the fastest path to the accolade. However, then once you have the accolade and you're trying to get booked on stages or you're trying to get on podcasts or really promote that you're a best-selling author, the first question they're going to say when you're like, yes, I'm a best-selling author, they're going to say, amazing. Can you send me a copy of your book? Where can I get your book? How can I get your book? I'd love to read your book. And then you're like, well, actually, it's a book compilation. And right away, you've lost all credibility with them. Right away, they're like, wah, wah, wah. And they may pull the invitation to appear on the show. They may pull your invitation to speak. It is the fastest path to the accolade. However, if you are going to do it, you want to be strategic and you want to make sure you've got your own book in progress and process. You want to make sure that you're able to pretty quickly follow up with having your own best-selling book out, which means that you want to also strategically time the releases, because you don't want a long period of time to go in between where you're saying you're a best-selling author, but the only thing you've got is your book compilation. Also with book compilations, they tend to not have the quality control. Every chapter is in a different voice. Some are active voice, some are passive voice. Some people, their stories are more compelling, others are boring, right? Other people pour their heart and soul into it. Other people just dial it in because they just paid to play. So then even when you do have this finished product, if you are promoting it or you are giving it to people to read, again, it actually harms your credibility because it's so inconsistent. So super important if you are going to do it that you're actually insisting on seeing the prior volumes that they have done. You want to look at the cover. You want to look at the interior formatting. If it looks like a sixth grade book, right, because it's just the font's too big, the margins are too big, the font's too curvy, again, that's going to undermine your credibility. You're not going to be able to promote it. So ask to see their previous work. You want to look at it. You want to look at the cover. You want to look at the formatting. You want to look at the fonts. You want to read it for consistency. You want to look at the quality. You want to ask them, what is their quality control process? What is their editing process? What type of editing are they doing? Right? If they're just reading it and looking for typos, that's not editing. You can spell check and grammar check on your own, right? That's just them trying to tell you something that they think you want to hear. You also need to ask them about copywriting, right? They're going to copyright the book. And if you don't know about copywriting and you haven't copyrighted your chapter before they've copyrighted the book, they now own your intellectual property. So it's so important to make sure that you are copywriting your chapter before you give it to them and that you let them know that it's been copyrighted. Now, a credible book compilation will give you a reprinted with permissions form, which says, yep, we know that you own your copyright. We know that you own your intellectual property, and you are giving us permission to reprint your material that you own in our book. And we're acknowledging that we don't own the copyright, right? But you're giving us permission to put your chapter in our book. They need to give you that. If they're not giving you that, then it's a sign that they're copywriting the book, right? So it should be in a book compilation that each individual chapter owner has copyrighted their material. They own the copyright to that, which means that the book itself does not get copyrighted. So then on the legal page, on the inside of the book, it will explicitly say each author owns the copyright for their material. All authors have given permission to include their chapter herein. It will explicitly say that. The book itself will not say copyright, with the Library of Congress number. And it won't say copyright and the year, right? Because the book can't be copyrighted if each individual chapter is separately copyrighted by their owner. So really important to know that. Really important to ask some of the questions we've already talked about, to ask about royalties, to ask about promotional plan, marketing plan, distribution plan beyond the launch. What's their plan for 6 months from now? What's their plan for a year from now, right? It's really important to ask them who's going to house the manuscript, like who and where, and whose back office. It's really important to ask them what platforms they're using and which ones have exclusivity, right? These are the questions that we've already talked about, but I'm reiterating them because it's so, so, so important to ask the publisher that may be doing the book compilation, right? Super important. Great. What else is included? If I'm in this book compilation, are we doing any kind of virtual summit or virtual, 3-day event? Are we doing any kind of virtual conference where we're all speaking? How do we get those assets? Are we getting those assets, right? Are we going to be able to get the footage of us speaking about our material on this group event? Are we getting that footage? Well, that's good, because then you'll have some more material to leverage, right? Are we doing Facebook Lives with each other, right? Well, that would be good, because then not only are you promoting, but then you're getting this content that you can repurpose, right? On social media, you're getting in front of other people's audiences. So you want to find out exactly what the plan is, exactly what you're going to be doing, and exactly what assets you are receiving. Right? Are you receiving copies of those Facebook Lives? And do you have permission to use them in any way you want? And this should all be fine print in your book compilation contract. But if not, you want to ask these questions. Beyond just the book, what assets are we getting? Right? What videos are we getting? What graphics are we getting? What rights do we have to use them going forward? Which co-authors in this book compilation have podcasts? And are all of us individually going to be guests on their podcasts? And then do we get that footage? And then do we have rights to use that? So ask the questions, right? If they are a reputable publisher, they will welcome questions. They will be able to answer them. If they are not, they'll get upset. And if they get upset that, oh my goodness, you're actually asking appropriate questions that are credible, that are valid, then you can decide whether you want to continue to work with them or how you want to navigate that. But you should be able to have these open kind of discussions with them, really asking these questions that are critical for you to know what exactly are you paying for. Because if you're only paying to be in a chapter of a book without quality control, without the research, where the cover is atrocious, where they don't have a plan, then you're paying for nothing other than an empty accolade that you're not really going to be able to truly leverage, because you're not going to have an asset you can actually give them with any kind of pride and credibility. So really important. You also want to ask in Vanity Press whether you're getting a custom cover, meaning are they only doing one standard cover? And if so, whose name is on it, right? Or are they doing a custom cover where it's going to be your name on that cover? Now, I will tell you, custom covers are amazing. However, they are the #1 cause of getting your Amazon account shut down, right? Because now with the AI sweeps, if you have a book compilation, they are the #1 type of account to get closed in these new wave of sweeps. If you have a book compilation and there's a launch volume that has the person whose idea it was, their name is on the front, right? But your name is not on the front cover, and that's the launch volume. And then they have gotten different ISBN numbers. They're changing the cover, they're putting your name on it, and they're re-uploading those. You now have 11 versions of the exact same book out on Amazon or Ingram Spark or Lulu or BookBaby. And when that AI sweep happens, they're going to say these are plagiarized, because the AI will just scan the interior content, and guess what? The interior content is exactly the same. The only things that are different when you have custom covers is the cover is different and the ISBN number is different, right? The cover might have your picture on it or your name on it, but the interior cover is the same. The interior content is the same. And what that then flags is that these are fraudulent, these are plagiarized, and they'll shut down everyone's account. You don't get to reopen it once it's shut down, unless you get an attorney and fight. Good luck to you, right? So it is really important. In the past, that has been the model. In the past, it's you sell a book compilation, there's a launch volume that goes out with the organizer's name, but then one of the benefits, everybody gets their own version with their own custom cover and their name on the cover, and then you get to promote that and say, yeah, I'm a best-selling author and here's my cover and all of that. That was a model that actually worked until these AI sweeps, right? And now it's the #1 way for getting your account shut down and tagged as fraud. So you are going to see less and less. You probably have been seeing less and less of the customized covers, which also then reduces the benefit to you. So it is just important to be having these conversations if you're going to do vanity press, right? Vanity publication. That is the 5 paths to publication. I have infused into the 5 paths to publication a lot of the key mistakes, a lot of the key questions, but I'm going to transition now and flesh some of those out even more. The biggest mistake that authors make is they just write a book. So what? Okay, so you've written it. Nobody cares. No one's going to buy it except your friends and family. No one knows it exists. So just writing a book, completely pointless. Completely pointless, total waste of time and money, unless, again, it's a passion project, it's a legacy project. The key to making your book actually worth doing is you start with the business plan. You start with the business plan, you start with the promotional plan, you start with the leverage plan before you ever write a word of the book. Because if you don't know exactly how you're going to use it, exactly how you're going to leverage it, exactly how you're going to monetize it, don't do it. Because the reality is you are not going to make money off the sales of the book. My last royalty check, well, second to last one, the last one was $11.18, but the one before that was 54 cents. 54 cents. Like, you are never going to sell enough copies of your book to exceed the cost of publishing. It's just not going to happen. And anyone who tells you otherwise, unless you're super, super, super famous and going with the traditional publishing house, like, you are not going to make $50,000 to $250,000 in straight royalties off the copy of your book, off the sales of your book. You'll be lucky to make $1,000 in a year. That is like amazing royalties, $1,000 in a year. And so if you know, okay, I am not going to recoup the cost of production from straight royalties, then how am I going to get my money back? How am I going to make money from the book? What is my funnel? What are my offers? What is the content I'm going to be teaching in those offers? Who is my ideal client for those offers? What are my price points for my different offers? What's my client acquisition strategy? Right? How am I taking my ideal client? How am I finding my ideal client, connecting with them, and then taking my ideal client on a journey that allows them to get the transformation that they desire so that they continue in my world, go through my different products and offers, right? And I'm able to monetize them and bring them through my profit pyramid. What is my strategy for that? You must start there. And it's not as quick and easy as like, oh, I'm just going to offer masterminds and retreats, and I'm going to do a 3-day event and a free masterclass, and great, okay, I have a basic idea. No, you want to dive really, really deep, because all of that needs to be embedded in your book. That's how your book becomes such a critical part of your funnel. That's how your book actually then allows you to leverage it and have your business in a book, right? Your book needs to speak directly to your ideal client. It needs to address their hopes, their fears, their dreams. It needs to overcome their objections and take them on an aligned journey. They need to actually start to get transformation within the book, right? But the book should mirror the programs that you're offering. The book should mirror the content that you'd be teaching if you did a 6-month program or year-long program or group coaching, or if you were doing a retreat, or you're doing masterminds, or you're doing other events, or you're recording an e-course, like whatever the different aspects of your business plan are, the book needs to mirror that. But the book can't mirror that if you start with the book. The book can only mirror that if you start with a business plan. And you're spending the time to build out your funnels, build out your pyramid, right? Get clear on your avatar. Then you can embed that so that the book can speak to your ideal client, connect with them, build the know, like, and trust factor, start to take them on that journey where they are starting to get transformation so that they want to continue that journey with you. It needs to be strategically reverse engineered from the end in mind. So you got to start with the end in mind. Big mistake. When people come to me and they're like, I've got a manuscript, I'm like, amazing, set it aside, don't look at it. Let's start and reverse engineer. Let's create the plan. And then their manuscript completely changes, right? Because if you're just writing the manuscript without the plan, you're writing it from an I perspective. Here's my story. Here's what I went through. Here, let me tell you about my journey. And the thing is, they don't care about you. Not yet, right? They are looking for this book to solve their problem. They're looking for the book to get them out of pain. The focus of the book must be on them, not you. You're only relevant in the book to the extent that your personal stories or experiences show them that you've walked in their shoes. You're only relevant to the extent that it says, hey, I've been where you are. Now I'm on the other side. Take my hand. I'll guide you through. I know what you're thinking and feeling. I know the pain that you're in because I used to be in it, and now I'm on the other side and I can help you. So take my hand and let's go. I'll guide you through the process. to get you from where you are to where you want to be. So it's this, your stories, your experience is so sparingly woven in that it's not, here's my story, here's everything I've gone through, because they don't care, right? That's not what they're buying. Unless you're super famous already. And then, you know, like you're Amelia Earhart, you're super famous, you died, people are now interested in, well, how'd you learn to fly a plane? And why'd you learn to fly a plane? And what happened, right? Otherwise, they don't care. They only begin to care when they start to see you've walked in their shoes. They only begin to trust you when they see that you've been there, now you're on the other side, and you actually have tools, strategies, processes to walk them through the journey. Then they start to lean in. Then they pay attention. Then they're interested in what you've gone through and how you've navigated, but only through the lens of how it's helping them. Your book is about them, not you. Your business is about them, not you. Your message is about them, not you. You are the vehicle of transformation. You are the vehicle of change. You are a facilitator of their growth and healing. But they're the ones that change. They're the ones that transform. They're the ones that grow. They're the ones that heal. So the biggest mistake is starting to do your book without taking the time to get so crystal clear on all the ways you want to monetize it, all the ways you want to leverage it, what exactly the content is, what is the journey that you're taking them on, what are the steps in that journey, right? What do they actually need to know to be successful at each step in that journey? What questions might come up for them about each step in that journey? What fears might come up for them, or the resistance and objections might come up for them at each step in the journey? You want to get crystal clear on all of that so that your book can address it. Make sense? Super, super important. So make sure you take the time. If you've already started writing, put your pen down, stop, reverse, go back, get really clear on all these things. And then the next mistake people make is they actually write their book, right? Either by hand or typing it. Critical mistake. Again, if you're doing it for legacy, you're doing it just because it's a passion project, that's different. But if you are doing it for client connection, client acquisition, client conversion, if you are doing the book to build your business and your brand, then you are going to voice memo your book. And that is really, really important, because I don't care who you are, we write differently than we speak. Our diction choices are different. Our cadence is different. Our sentence structure is different, right? We're much more formal when we write than when we actually speak. And if the point is to have a business in a book where you can just pull your social media content from the book, you can pull the newsletters from the book, you can pull the email sequences from the book, you can pull your speech content from the book, you can pull your e-course material or workshop material or mastermind material or group coaching material or retreat material from the book, then the book needs to match your voice and your personality. And the way to ensure that it does is by voice memoing, because then you are actually speaking your book, so that when the reader is reading the book and then they see you on YouTube, they see you on social media, they see you on a stage, they hear you on a podcast, the personalities align, the messages align. They already feel like they know you. They already feel like they're listening to their friend, because it is the same voice that they've heard in the book. Really, really important. It deepens the know, like, and trust factor. It deepens the bonding factor. It increases conversion. It makes conversion so much faster and easier when they already feel like they know you, right? How many of us, we feel like we know Jamie Kern Lima, right? We don't know her. We haven't met her, or if we have, we've met her at an event, but she's not, we can't just call her. And amazing if you can. That's amazing. But She's an absolute master at showing up on social media, showing up on stage exactly the same as if you read her book, Believe It, right? Or you've read any of the advanced copies of Worthy. They sound exactly. So when you are reading those books, it's like you're having a conversation with her. It's like she's sitting right in front of you talking to you, and you can't help but bond with her. You cannot help but feel like you are sitting there turning the pages of a conversation with your sister. And that then really deepens the connection when we see her on a podcast, or we see her on social media, or we see her on a stage. We're instantly bonded with her because of that congruency. So really, really important. Do not actually type out your book. Okay, super important. It's also super important that you are not just your book is not just the chronological events of your story. And I know that ties back to what we just talked about of your book is not your story. You're only sharing the parts of your story that are relevant to these steps in the journey that you're taking the client on. You're only sharing the parts of your story that are relevant to their transformation, to their hopes, their dreams, their fears, their resistance, their objections. So the next biggest mistake people make is they're like, I'm just going to vomit my whole story, and I'm going to start from here, and I'm going to go through here, and it's just, here's what happened. And that is not an effective strategy. It's absolutely not effective for connection or conversion. It's not effective for getting them the transformation. Because again, if you're sharing your story that way, you're sharing your story from the perspective of it's my story, not let me help you. Here's how you can navigate the journey that you're on, right? It makes the focus on you, not on them, which is a critical mistake. So the next biggest mistake people make, we talked a lot about when we talked about the self-publishing path to publication. We talked a lot about already when we talked about the hybrid and independent path to publication. But the next biggest mistake is not fiercely protecting your intellectual property. You personally need to copyright your material. It costs $65. It takes 10 minutes. You do that at copyright.gov. That is the official government website. You do not need to pay somebody else to do it for you. There's all these people out there saying, oh, you pay me hundreds of dollars and I'll copyright it. It is $65. You pay it to the government, and the whole process takes 10 minutes. It's an online little form. You go through each screen. Then at the end, you pay your $65. Then the final step, you have to upload your manuscript. You hit submit. They'll mail you a certificate of copyright, or they'll reach out with any questions or concerns. So it's a very simple process. Do not fall for the trap of needing to hire somebody to do that. But you always make sure that you have copyrighted your material before the publication date. And that is an actual question on your copyright application. It will ask you if it's already been published. You want to answer no. So you are filing for the copyright before your book goes live, or before your chapter goes live. Absolutely critically important. Make sure you own it. Make sure they send you the certificate of copyright. The next biggest mistake is that you allow your book to live in someone else's back office. Now, again, if you're doing traditional publishing house or hybrid, you have much less negotiating power and you have much less say, right? They can be very much my way or the highway. But once you get to independent publishing house in particular, or even vanity press, you want to insist that you get all of your final files in all the formats. You need to own them. They need to send them to you. You're going to put them on a flash drive. You're going to put them on a Google Drive. You're going to put them in several places so that no matter what happens, you own all of your final files. right? You want to make sure that you are retaining control over your manuscript and your files. And that is so important because you never, ever, ever want to be at the mercy of your publisher going out of business or deciding that they're too busy to answer your emails, right? Or that they're not going to do a promotion for you, or that when you need to order authors copies because you've got this big speaking engagement coming up, that they're too busy to process it. They don't process it. They refuse. Like, you never want to be at the mercy of your publisher in that regard. So make sure that you are getting complete control of your final files. Make sure you know where they're being uploaded. And ideally, you want them uploaded into your own Ingram Spark account. We've already talked about why you want to go Ingram Spark, not Amazon. We talked about that quite a bit. Ingram Spark is the world's largest book distributor. It is print on demand, so you're not dealing with needing to front the money for 5,000 copies and then you've got to warehouse them somewhere and pack them and ship them. It's print on demand, but they are the world's largest distributor. Barnes & Noble can pick up from them, Amazon can pick up from them, Target can pick up from them, libraries around the world can pick up from them, independent bookstores around the world can pick up from them, other organizations can pick up from them. So it is your widest distribution, it is your safest distribution. Also, because it is wider distribution, they tend to pay less. But that's okay because you're not doing it for the royalties. We've already talked about how you're not going to make more in royalties than you will off the sale of your book. And so we've already talked about how you're going to leverage it, how you have that business plan. So the fact that they pay a little bit less for the privilege of being the largest distributor in the world is totally worth it. Don't worry about making less in royalties. Go for the wider distribution. So much safer because then they're not actually able to just close down your account like Amazon is doing. So gives you a lot more protection, a lot more flexibility. That is the next biggest mistake. The fourth biggest mistake is not knowing where your ISBN number is coming from and not knowing about exclusivity. We've already talked about that. I do want to make sure that I'm leaving some time for questions. So again, I will just highlight quickly, your ISBN number needs to come from Bawker. You do not want it to come from Amazon. It's $125 per ISBN. You will need one ISBN for your paperback copy, a different ISBN for a hardback copy, a different ISBN for an ebook copy, a different ISBN for audio, right? Each format of your book gets its own ISBN number, and you get them directly from Bawker. Again, make sure you are checking for exclusivity. You do not want to back yourself into a corner, which most people do. You need to know which platforms and which formats have hidden exclusivity. Again, if you upload your ebook directly to Amazon KDP and enable KDP Select, you've now just entered an exclusivity provision. So really important to ask those questions, really important to read the fine print, really important to be aware of these different pitfalls. Really important that you have the transparency for reports, that you have the control to be able to run promotions. It's also really, really important. I want to make sure we touch on tax things. If you are in the US, your royalties are taxable. And so if your manuscript is being held in, say, the publisher's account, then the publisher is getting the tax paper. What are they doing with it? Because you're going to be responsible for those taxes. So what are they doing? How are they dividing up that tax liability? How do you know that it's actually your liability and not someone else's, right? What is their process for that? It's another reason why you want your manuscript to be housed in your own back office, right? Your own Ingram Spark. The publisher can do all the work. You give them a temporary login and password where they can go in and handle everything for you, right? Handle the uploading, handle the launch, handle all the back end algorithm stuff. But then once it's out into the world, you want to be able to change your password, retain complete control and ownership. and ensure that the royalties are getting direct deposited into your bank account, that you are getting the appropriate tax paper, because when those tax papers are issued, they're also given directly to the IRS. So it's not like the IRS doesn't know about your royalties. They're going to expect that that shows up on your tax filings. So other little nuances that you want to make sure you are aware of, so you know how to navigate them and the IRS doesn't come knocking down the road. So super important, royalties are taxable. They do actually issue a tax form. You want to make sure that that's coming directly to you so that you can give it to your accountant or whoever your tax preparer is, so that everything is good and aligned and above board. So we have covered a ton in the last hour or so. We've covered the 5 paths to publication, when you should use which, the pros, the cons, the pitfalls to avoid. We have covered the biggest mistakes that people make, how to avoid them. We have covered the biggest questions to ask, why they're important to ask, and we have covered things like fiercely protecting your intellectual property, getting copyright, having control over your manuscript, the royalties, your tax papers, all of that. So I would love, if you have other questions, do reach out to me, do connect with me. I would love to answer your questions. So you can message me and we can discuss further. I would love to help you get your business plan done, get your manuscript strategically crafted, and help you actually get your book out into the world in a way that increases your visibility and authority, positions you as an expert, that allows you to have the client connection, client conversion that you desire, that allows you to have a strategically designed and aligned business in a book, so that you can build your business and your brand and increase your impact and income. Do reach out to me. I would love to see you at our next book writing retreat. So let's be in touch.